A wolf in sheep's clothing. This, ironically, is the best way to encompass exactly what Beastars is. It has all the wrong things going for it. It's a 3D anime, it's on Netflix, and most importantly, it's about anthropomorphic talking animals. But beneath its profoundly strange wrapping are some savage fangs, and I'm not talking about your average, this anime is better than you think because it's actually really brutal. While Beastars does get there, superseding its violence is its over-the-lethal dose of incredibly impactful and relatable social commentary. Beastars works in the themes of discrimination based on birth, specifically regarding your carnivore and herbivore status, at least within the world of the anime, but it gets broken down even further by species. Instead of trying to prove stereotypes or birth status wrong, Beastars heavily works in a realm where what you were born as is just as, if not more important than who you want to be. And that mantra warps the minds of every single character that you deal with in ways that hit home on an incredibly human level. This show took me on a wild ride going in blind with no idea what to expect. It made me think, it made me feel, and most disturbingly gave me an attraction to the hottest rabbit since Lola Bunny. Let's just say there's definitely a certain demographic of people that Beastars will appeal to for more nefarious reasons, but trust me, it's not all about that. Let's get into it. Beastars opens up with the brutal murder of an alpaca named Tem. He's devoured by a mysterious assailant who was killed after school. And yes, an alpaca attends school. Beastars is really weird. Cherryton Academy is your atypical anime Japanese high school, except it's attended by animal people, and not in an ironic way. This is taken extremely seriously in the show. It's not funny that there's bears and tigers mingling with squirrels and giraffes. That's the way the world is inside and outside of Cherryton. Sheep and wolves attend clubs together, which brings up the first and most compelling issue of the series: food. Now, there isn't any talking vegetables, so the herbivorous students are content with their salads, but for the obligate carnivores, a problem is presented. In this world, it's illegal to eat meat. Eggs are fine though, which is kind of super gross if you think about them coming from an educated sentient chicken. But when all the meat on the planet belongs to the bodies of intelligent creatures with rights and families and futures and careers, it makes sense that it would be illegal to consume it. So instead of eating other citizens, the carnivores receive their protein from soy and other supplements, and for most, it's their goal to coexist peacefully with others in society, which is where Legoshi comes in, a gray wolf with a major personality complex. Now, wolves are big, heavy canines whose killing power outweighs even their oversized bodies, and while they can digest plants, they eat meat above all else. The society Legoshi lives in demands repression of his predatory instinct, causing him to fear the feelings that naturally come with being a wolf, the hunger that naturally comes from being a carnivore. This dichotomy in nature versus behavior is constantly symbolized by close-ups on Legoshi's massive hands, natural killing machines that contrast his incredibly submissive attitude. He's meek and mild, mostly observant, and tries to appease his herbivorous co-eds, and his primary role is to serve as the audience look into a life of privilege, specifically someone who constantly feels guilty about it. And not only is that something that is rarely spoken about, but it's something that I think a lot of people can relate to. In the world of Beastars, despite law and order, herbivores live with the knowledge that they are and will always be prey, that there's little they can do to protect themselves if a carnivore loses their grip, and that seems to happen quite a lot. Small animals like mice and squirrels are treated like they're incapable or a joke, and even worse is a constant struggle for supremacy. There's factions on all sides vying for power, those who want to cull the carnivores, those who want unity, and those who want carnivore supremacy. The world, the social order that has been constructed for extremely different people to exist in together, hangs in a fragile balance. It's essentially taped together with nothing but a promise of coexistence, but things always unavoidably slip through the cracks, making this world exactly like ours. And I just gotta put this out there, if you think white and or male privilege is a myth, you're going to completely miss one of the main themes of Beastars, and that's the institutional injustice and inequality in our world due to race, gender, sexuality, nationality, and social economic status. If you believe that we're all born on an equal playing field, wake up. It's story time. I was legally homeless for 7 years, from about 17 to 24. It was hard. It was some of the hardest times of my life. However, It was nothing compared to what it would have been like if I wasn't white and a relatively big guy. I was able to defend myself, cops weren't out to get me, people trusted me, I could get menial jobs easily. I was caught shoplifting and had my record completely expunged with a small fine and 10 hours of community service. I had a good educational background because of where I was raised. Who I was born as allowed me to survive that situation. Those years relatively unscathed. And that's unfair. Am I happy it worked out? Yes. Do I feel guilty that it was because of who I am, because of the way I was born, because of my privileges? Yeah, I do. It's unjust. It's not deserved. Until I started YouTube in 2015, I can honestly say I never tried in my life because I didn't have to. My family was poor but educated, and I skated by on the bare minimum because that's all I ever needed to do. And maybe that's something I should be ashamed of, but being homeless taught me a lot about life. It taught me about myself. I lost a lot of bad things happened. It was not a cakewalk, but it would have been so much worse if I didn't have the social armor of being white and a man, and I know that. And in the world of Beastars, Legoshi has that same armor class. He's privileged, naturally strong. He'll never have to fear getting hurt or being devoured by a carnivore unless he goes looking for a fight or shoves that drunk guy at the bar who keeps sitting on him like he's not there. Legoshi is a predator, not prey, and that comes with a sense of security in life. But unlike the many other carnivore characters, he actively realizes the effect his massive frame, sharp claws, and deadly fangs have on the herbivore population, which influences the way he holds himself around his peers, opting for a heavy slouch to become shorter and less menacing while adopting an introverted and awkward image. It's another thing that many men don't realize about what it is to be a male. For instance, I don't feel tall, but to a lot of people, I am. I don't feel strong, but to a lot of people, I am. And just naturally, I don't work out. It took me years of living with a diminutive woman to really get a grip on how imposing even an average man can be by simply existing. Legoshi's direct opposite is the red deer Louis, leader of the theater department. This guy stands tall and proud. He's an overly aggressive, dominant male who makes up for his natural lack of strength with strength of character. He's the popular student on the fast track to becoming the next Beastar, a title bestowed upon the future movers and shakers of this animal world. The contrasting mentalities of these two are brought on by their own insecurities. Louis, Legoshi's natural prey, is in charge, but hates that he was born as an herbivore, lacking the power and natural self-assurance that comes with being a carnivore. He hates that Legoshi pretends to be weak to fit in rather than owning his power and rising up to his natural status of top of the food chain, pun intended. It's a classic case of natural talent versus hard work, or being born into status versus earning your role. Louis puts all of his soul into being as strong as possible, but will never be able to compare to what Legoshi has in his natural physicality. It creates a bitter resentment in Louis, while on the other hand, Legoshi admires the deer's confidence and his passion and charisma, traits Legoshi sees as strength. The contrast here is essential to understanding the narrative. In Louis's mind, the carnivore is the natural leader, so he pushes himself literally past his breaking point to fight against what the food chain deems natural. He struggles to become the best and focuses on making himself look invincible for the betterment of herbivore kind. Legoshi, on the other hand, has a conflict of the soul, and his actions show that he resents and distrusts his own carnivorous instincts. He fidgets with his hands constantly out of anxiety. It's almost as if being a carnivore is a mistake, and his never-ending self-questioning revolves around whether or not he can fix what he is with who he is. This cyclical self-doubt is spotlighted during Legoshi's first encounter with his eventual crush, Haru. While keeping lookout for Louis as the deer and another actor break school rules to practice after hours, Legoshi's instincts take over when a smell overpowers his reason. Haru, a white dwarf rabbit, was in the wrong place at the wrong time that night, and for the first time in his life, Legoshi is overwhelmed by his natural carnivorous instincts. He attacks Haru, tackles her, and captures her in an embrace that could end in her death at any point. He holds her there as the two sides of his brain personified by himself and a shadow self in the anime anime, war between societal reason and natural desire. This scene is intense, and what should come naturally to an apex predator becomes a deep internal conflict between what Legoshi is and what society expects him to be, what he expects himself to be. The near-death experience is interrupted and Haru runs for her life. As she flees, Legoshi accidentally scratches her badly with his claws, and the incident leaves Legoshi even more depressed than usual and full of self-doubt, but serves to show just how hard it is for even the most dedicated pacifistic carnivore to suppress their instincts. It's a scene full of realization, self-hate, and fear that pushes Legoshi to fix his mistake, while reinforcing his inability to trust his own nature despite his best efforts to act non-carnivorous. Haru, though, has an entirely different set of complications. She's treated horribly in school for being extremely promiscuous, which I'm personally all for, get yours, but for many, dong hopping is seen as lessening your personal value. Because of this, she's isolated and mostly tends to the flowers of the garden club, of which she is the sole member. Flowers that Legoshi is sent to pick up for the theater club, not knowing whom they belong to. This next encounter between Wolf and Rabbit is entirely different from the first, and Legoshi timidly speaks to Haru, who, despite her diminutive size, is relatively self-assured and very straightforward. She also says nothing about her attack despite having her scratches covered with bandages. Then, as payment for Legoshi's help in the garden, Haru wrongfully assumes Legoshi wants to sleep with her, showing exactly what she assumes everyone thinks of her. She automatically begins undressing both of them, which short-circuits Legoshi's introverted brain. As a professional in the art of social distancing, this was the closest Legoshi had ever come to a woman or even being treated as a male. It was the most intimate moment he'd had with anyone, at least outside his initial contact with Haru in front of the theater when he attempted to eat her. You could even say that these two scenarios were equally intimate, but we'll get into that. What stuck out from this failed interspecies review is that for the first time in both their lives, it didn't matter who was a carnivore and who was an herbivore. In such an intimate setting, they're both just animals, personalities and minds coexisting together. Legoshi had no inherent power over Haru. If anything, her Bang Train experience gave her power over Legoshi, a reversal of the taboo and unspoken societal norms, since everyone is supposed to be equal. This idea of equality through intimacy is expounded upon further by Haru later on. She was told her entire life that she always needed to be careful because the second she dropped her guard, she could be eaten immediately. She felt pitied by everyone because of her size and the fact that she was looked at as innocent and cute. Harmless smiles became condescension, offers of assistance became demeaning. She saw herself as the walking dead, that everyone knew that she would eventually get eaten because there was no way she could defend herself. It wasn't until a male confessed his love to her and they slept together that she felt like she was truly seen for who she was. She felt that there was no pretending there in that physical moment, so she chased that feeling of personal substance by sleeping around. In her mind, fluffing some fur puts everyone on equal footing, and for Haru, it's the one time she sees herself as an individual and feels that she's seen as an individual, not just a diminutive rabbit. And through animals, we see a uniquely human experience, the anxiety building up to an intimate moment, the uncertainty, the spark of someone else's touch. Intimacy is the ultimate give and take between two individuals. It's a permissive invasion, and it's the one thing that seems to break down the barrier between carnivore and herbivore in Beastars. But as the anime continues, it becomes apparent that an act of intimacy is not enough to break that instinctual wall for more than a moment. Legoshi continues to doubt himself and his growing feelings about Haru, and eventually meets Gohin, who I'm going to put out there as the first A-tier character of 2020. He's a giant panda, a massive carnivore whose diet is made up of 99% bamboo. He's buff, macho, and also a backdoor psychotherapist who totes a crossbow and believes Legoshi's love for Haru is a cross-contaminated emotional defense. He believes that Legoshi's ego has switched a true sense of lust for meat into a sensation which feels enough like romantic love for Legoshi to believe that's what he's truly feeling. Beastars isn't a show that ends with the good feelings of, if you just believe in yourself, you can do anything. It's a show that questions whether or not anything you do is actually changing who you are, and that idea expounded upon every character makes Beastars relatable in a way that I've never experienced from another show. Despite the plot revolving around animals with fingers, the internal struggles between the different species and the umbrella categories of carnivore and herbivore are unbelievably human, and I think that perhaps it's because we so often see ourselves as above animals on a different playing field. A huge faction of the human race believes it is superior to other species, so superior that I've had actual arguments with people who do not believe that human beings are even animals at all. Beastars makes it blatantly obvious that we are just another species with a stupid Latin name. The issues between the carnivora and the herbivora in the show are all relevant to the Homo sapien. And Legoshi, as a deadly wolf, is a gentle soul, trapped inside a terrifying body who only wants to escape the conditions that predetermined his placement in the social order of life. It's important to note that you can be a gentle and good person and have terrible thoughts or look frightening. A brain is an organ whose primary function is to think and process data. Sometimes that digestion results in a thought that makes you shudder, maybe makes you think you're crazy or sick in the head, but it happens to everyone. It's important to remember thoughts are no different than heartbeats or stomach growls or a simple breath. It's the meaning that you give thoughts that matters. And speaking of meaning, some carnivores resent Legoshi's refusal to come to terms with his taste for flesh, and some don't. Some herbivores like Louis resent Legoshi for suppressing his advantages for their sake, but some also appreciate his kindness. For those who oppose his ideology, it's like each side is saying, "What, you think you're better than me?" All the while our wolf boy is just trying to understand his own feelings and needs in a complicated world. This feeling of not being who you want to be, of being fit into a specific role not because of who you are but because of what you are, hits on a deep visceral level. I'd also like to point out the likelihood that much of this series has to do with the Japanese ideology of masculinity. In 2006, the term herbivore male, or shoshoku danshi, was coined by Maki Fukasawa in regards to men who don't fit with the aggressive and dominant masculine archetype which pervades Japanese society and American society as well. We just lie about it a lot more. I relate so intimately to understanding that people want me to be something that I'm not. I feel constantly at odds with who I am inside and what society expects me to be. Like, why don't you grow up? Why don't you get a real job? When are you going to take life seriously? It's a consistent feeling of being expected to take up a role I don't even want or care about. I'm happy being me, even with all my faults and idiosyncrasies. It's these pieces of real life so perfectly knitted into Legoshi's story that makes Beastars an ironically excellent take on humanity and the struggles within it. When you zoom from the macro into the micro, all Legoshi, Haru, and Louis are trying to do is become happy with themselves as well. And the end of the season, while left on a huge cliffhanger, highlights at the very least some progression. Legoshi steps up to the plate and uses his power not to harm, but instead to protect Haru. And Louis gives up his pride to enact justice the only way he feels he physically can. While Beastars is a completely make-believe world inhabited by uncharacteristically human personalities for an anime, it's a real, emotional, down-to-earth, candid take on what people from all walks of life deal with every day, and journeying through an exceptionally well-built world with a character that is constantly trying to understand his place versus himself. And that's a struggle I think we all fight with at some point in life. We see how complicated love can be due to personal history, circumstances, class, race, and instinct. It's possible that Haru is having difficulties with Legoshi because of their initial interaction. Life and death fear doesn't just go away even if you accept it. Your body will naturally react to stimulus. We get a glimpse of how corrupt those in control of society's image have to be to keep up the facade of peace and safety. In truth, the world can be a dangerous and scary place, more so for those who are marginalized. There are those in it who have rejected their social contract in order to take what they want, whatever it may be, without remorse. Because in the end, even right and wrong are dictated by that social contract. Beastars shows that everyone is inherently different, that the world is tough and unfair, but nobody is useless or powerless unless they believe so. And I think most people are ignoring the show because they're writing it off as softcore furry gentai, which is a semi-solid take too. Hi everybody, sorry that I ended this very serious video on a joke. I just figured that we needed a little bit of levity towards the end there, but that's besides the point. We have just a couple of things to go over quickly before this video is over. First of all, I would like to thank our newest Super Saiyan God, Chris, from the Hard Reboot Network. My dude, thank you so much. We've talked personally. I really appreciate your very generous donation and your consistent help with the channel. Thank you so much. And our special lucky patron of the week, who is Zuby Squared. Anyway, I'm sure tons of you have lots of things to say about this video in particular, so please leave your opinions, thoughts, questions in the comments down below. And look, I know that we're all going through some really tough times right now. This is an unprecedented time in human history. You know, like a lot of people want to compare the coronavirus stuff that's going on to the Black Plague and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. This is nothing like that. That was mostly Europe. This is sweeping the entire world. Everybody's affected. The economy is having a lot of trouble. And a lot of people are scared and lonely right now. So I am going to be doing the best that I can to continue to be bringing you guys content, and I'm also going to be streaming more on Twitch. So that's twitch.tv/Bonsai Pop. We'll put a link in the description and probably in the comments. And I'll try to go live a couple days a week, play some fighting games, and try to entertain you guys, talk with you, and stuff like that. So hopefully we can have fun together and try to get through this, and stay safe, stay healthy, stay cool, and watch more of our videos. We got plenty of them for you. So as always, make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That is bonsai_pop, at bonsai_pop on both of those. Anyway, my name is Mike. This is Bonsai Pop. Definitely check out the rest of our videos. I'll catch you next time. Thanks.